I am back with Chris, the head of partnerships, and then we also have Gary Conroy, aka the, pardon me, my voice is
Chief Product Officer
Chief-
for TransferMate. I won't tell you the other AKAs because they're probably not fit for it. But we can start with my professional title.
We love it. Sorry about that, Gary. Chief Product Officer of TransferMate. My notes were not sticking up. But anyways, how was day 2 of Money 2020, gentlemen?
It's good. It's good so far. It's early, you know. I mean, we kind of, I think it kicked off about 8 a.m. You got to keep it a little bit respectable, day 2.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Day 2,
know.
you know, 8 a.m. and it's a lot of fun and exhausting and fun and exhausting. But it's
exhausting.
all worth it, right,
That's what
Gary?
it's about. You gotta,
all worth it.
You got to cram it in, you know.
Exactly. Solemnly agree. I would say it's a home stretch, but we're not there just yet.
Oh no. This is the middle innings right here.
Indeed. All right, Gary. So just to get the ball rolling, how long have you been with TransferMate?
So I've been with TransferMate for 5 years, but I've been in like payments forever, right? So I originally started with Goldman Sachs out of college. I was part of their kind of management program out of London. Then was Finastra, implementing core retail banking systems in developing markets for like 4 or 5 years. And then for 12 years I was the number 2 and then the number 1 for an e-com gateway company that sold out to Global Payments based out of Atlanta. So that was card acquiring for e-com. And then I moved over to the B2B and the bank account world with TransferMate. So like what we do is cross-border payments, so access local settlement fiat rails. So think you can do SwiftWire, FedWire, ACH, RTP, and do that for every country globally, right? As well as issue stored value, virtual accounts, and we embed all that. Then we expose it through technology layers, and you've got, you know, business spend management, payroll, education platforms, financial institutions that basically plug us in as payments as a service. So we're in the fiat world, but like we like what's going on in crypto and blockchain, and so it's really interesting for us in terms of the use cases for cross-border and how we can partner and help other crypto companies as well with their on and off ramps, for example.
And how many businesses does TransferMate do this for?
Yeah, so we've got like, you know, tens of thousands of customers.
Oh, wow.
But so if you think, if you're using, you know, SAP Concur Invoice, for example, we've got like a payments hub there. All your supplier payments go through that. If you're doing Immedis and you've got your global payroll payments, and you know, you can't use a wire for global payroll payments, right? It's got to hit on a certain date. It's got to be the full amount. You don't want like, you know, 30 quid to be missing from your wages, right? That's not going to go down too well. And I'd be tweeting that stuff if that happened. So also for student payments, students making international payments instead of universities paying merchant service charges for cross-regional interchange getting hit, switch that to bank rails. You're only looking at the transaction fee. So we work with like TouchNet and Transact, and we're in Kansas at Comtech there last week, one of their conferences. So it's all about, we're a horizontal, exposed by technology, and then the vertical solutions plug into us using our API and tech stack.
Wow, and you see what's going on. Probably an idea, like you see this blockchain popping up, right? We've got 2 blockchains, right? We got Proton and Metal Chain as well. And as far as setting crypto across borders, I mean, it's all decentralized, right? To send USDC or to send Euro or to send a stable coin or Bitcoin or Ethereum, etc. So how being out there, how do you see that in the payments industry when it comes to maybe incorporating blockchain or taking a look at the technology? This is like a 2-part question. Some good things you think about it, and maybe some concerns, or maybe we're not quite there yet. So if you can expand on that, that would be great.
Yeah, look, in theory, blockchain, what do you got? You got, irrevocable, irrefutable transactions written to the ledger, and instant delivery and instant settlement, right? So you think that's the dream for cross-border transactions, right? To have them happen, as quickly as domestic instant. The reality is probably a little bit more complicated, right? Because you've got on and off ramps, and you've got several players there. You need to have a wallet. I need an exchange. I've got withdrawal fees. So actually, the instant and cheap use case, there's an ecosystem that you've got to actually cooperate with and work with. That can mean that the cost isn't quite as free as you think about it. But the instant settlement is like, I think, the key thing that you're going to see growth out of, right?
Yeah, the instant settlement is definitely very attractive, right? Like, even on our, excuse the plug, even on Proton, right? Our settlement is 3 seconds. Transactions are 4,000 transactions per second. There's no gas fees, so like even our custodian with MetalPay. You want $20, they send you $20, you get $20, exactly, right? Yeah. But I definitely could see some other companies where they do have gas fees involved. So if I do want to send that money, I'm going to have to pay gas, etc. And so, but it is quite interesting how we're all looking at this now as how can we make blockchain evolve to you got the fast settlements, but one of the things that obviously has to be looked at is AML, right? Know your client. Right, getting verified, because there's some bad actors out there, right? And so.
Yeah, and for us, right, we're licensed. We're not just the tech, so you've got to onboard someone as the regulated money mover at the end if we're putting transactions through our rails. But to go back to the settlement piece, if you think about what a company like TransferMate does, right? So we eliminate all the hassle that comes with sending wires and all the fees, sending fees, lifting fees, etc. But in order to do that and access those local rails, you're sending money to my home country in Ireland, right? So we have to have a pool of liquidity available in Ireland to access those local rails and make a separate credit out there. So if you think blockchain, not just to execute the cross-border, but for players like ourselves, to actually have liquidity ready and available, in Ireland, so that I can then immediately liquidate that to, our euro float, and then make that separate credit. So I think, where we can use liquidity globally, wherever it is that we need to execute the transactions, that I think is going to be the killer use case, right?
Yeah, no, especially with having that liquidity, and also with that liquidity, right? Maybe in the meantime, lending that liquidity to make even more interest, right?
Yeah, I mean, the interest rate environment's pretty interesting, right? So, previous year looking at negative interest rates everywhere, and so people were looking at, hey, what can I earn in terms of yields in crypto? But obviously you have, from the retail environment is different from the business and corporate and enterprise environment in terms of their appetite to have crypto on the balance sheet. But again, when I look at what we do, right, I like, hey, with TransferMate, you can have one view of, we've got like 30 currencies that we offer stored value in. So we can hold balances, think of your multi-currency accounts, but local. We can give you a sterling account in the UK, give you a euro account in Europe, give you a US dollar account in US, etc., etc. So for those 30 currencies, you can see the balances using TransferMate. Well, what if we add digital assets to that as well? Now we can see your, and let's take USDC as an example. Let's say you can see your USDC balance alongside your USD balance. And from a treasury perspective, you say, hey, you know what, I know if my US dollar balance goes above 5,000, I want you to sweep any excess from that US dollar balance, sweep it into USDC, and then I can go and earn, whatever it is in terms of a yield. So I think from a digital asset perspective, next to the fiat asset, like having them all combined in one interface, where you can manage all of your assets, be they digital or be they fiat. That's like the other thing from our perspective, that unified view. So as a treasurer, financial controller, I'm not having to go into multiple systems, and I don't have inefficiencies in my process.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have, our custodial MetalPay. We talk about MetalPay a lot, right? A lot of the people listening know what MetalPay is. And, we got, a cash card that shows the cash, but it's really great to see all your digital assets right there, right? And eventually we're going to be adding some DeFi components to that where, like I said, in that lending pool of USDC or that APR, APY that you can earn off those digital assets is quite attractive, right? And especially if it's going to sit there for a couple days or a couple weeks, why not, put it into that pool and earn that interest that is showing. So that's exciting stuff, right? I mean, just to see how this will all be laid out.
I mean, all these things, right? What is the phrase? You underestimate or you overestimate what's going to happen in the next kind of 12 to 18 months, but totally underestimate what's going to happen in the next 10 years. And I think even in this case, as we come out of, dreaded phrase, the crypto winter, although looking at the stock market, I would say that it's going to be in a winter for everybody, right?
It might be cold for a while.
Yeah, it might be cold for a while. Maybe next year, but you know what? There's opportunities. The best businesses are built out of recessions. I think that's where we're going to see, the real use cases come out of this and separate the wheat from the chaff. So, everyone that's here, you can tell from the guys you're talking to, the people that are going to be here, long term, and are going to be players in this, and are building and thinking in the long term. But it's, this I think blockchain for cross border is, definitely one of the use cases that we're looking at, and kind of excited to be part of that ecosystem.
Yeah, Gary, what's interesting, and I'm probably going to bring this up. I've got a call later with travel. How the travel industry is being affected by blockchain and crypto. And, a great stat last year was 94% of buyers of digital assets in 2021 were Gen Zers and millennials, right? So, and these Gen Zers and millennials, they're not only consumers, but they're also business people. They're becoming the CPOs and the CEOs of these type companies, and they have an affinity to digital assets. So trying to think how you use blockchain technology, the ledger, whether it's in a decentralized way or even a somewhat centralized permissionless or permission way, kind of combining those two together is going to be really, really interesting for companies like yours and also other aspects of the industry as well.
Yeah, no, and I think generationally, right, it's totally going to change in terms of acceptance and attitude, and part of that is the regulatory environment, right? So, you've got the framework for regulation set out here in the US and Europe. You've got MiCA. So, while there's more supervisory regulation, that's going to be a good thing. And like with MiCA, you're going to be able to passport your licenses to other European countries. The same thing that you do if you've got a payments institution license or an e-money license or a stored value. It's bringing that same regulatory piece to it. And like from the central bank perspective, right, they not only want to be that supervisory capacity, but some of the regulators have an innovation mandate, and so you can see that not only through open banking and bringing more players into the ecosystem, but also the central bank, digital assets that are coming out. So, and again, I think one of the use cases for cross-border is going to be interesting, right? So, if you think, China's going to get restricted access to dollars, well, what about the digital yuan, right? So, ECNY, and what if that can then be used cross-borders and internationally? Will that be used as more of a share of international transactions? That will be a way of exposing their power. So I think once the central banks and the regulators get on board, that's when you'll start to see the shift. So, you see the younger generations coming up and it's totally comfortable for them. Regulators got to get comfortable with it too, and that's when you're going to see the institutional adoption come out of it. But it's happening, absolutely.
So you think we're definitely making strides? We're getting there from a regulatory perspective, and
well, the frameworks are coming into place. It doesn't mean you've got a free pass, right?
Right.
It means, regulation means you've got to safeguard everyone's money. You've got to make sure that you play by the rules. You've got to onboard the customers. It's going to be no different for the crypto firms as for the fiat firms, right? So, and that, that'll create the trust, because, what you don't want to hear is, when you hear of their instance whereby someone gets hacked or goes bust or whatever, ultimately as a regulator, I've got to safeguard customers' money, either retail customers or institutional customers, right? So, but they also got to stay relevant, because if the younger generation are getting into crypto and they're kind of like, hey, I don't regulate that. What's my role in this whole thing now? So that's why they're getting into the central bank digital currencies, because they have a need to stay relevant, and if they don't do that, then they're just going to be less powerful themselves. So they recognize that. They recognize they got to move with the time. So I think that's only a one-way travel in terms of direction.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's it's this the decentralization. People don't want regulation, but you need some sort of regulation, right?
Yeah.
And if you're the whatever government we're talking about, if you over-regulate, then you push people back to, we want complete decentralization. We don't want any third party in here telling us what to do. But at the same time, if you don't have any, and it's that balance, right?
Yeah.
Where's the right balance?
Yeah, and hey, you look at the countries where you got restricted currency movement, right? So if you look at Nigeria, Argentina, China, etc., it's kind of like, hey, there's restrictions around what you can do with that currency in terms of onshore, taking it offshore, and translating to other currencies. So there've been the use cases that people are like, hey, if I am using crypto, because I can't do things in the current environment, but regulators got to move with the times there, and they've got to enable. So you see the e-naira, you see other things coming out where they're like, okay, if we don't do this, we're going to become irrelevant. So yeah, it's going to vary region by region. That's kind of going to be the interesting thing, the different use cases. Talk about cross-border, but where do you start? And so, and there's some good use cases out there. You see MoneyGrammer out here with like the USDC crypto to cash, conversion. And again, that goes back to that instant settlement piece that I was talking about, which is, really valuable for cross-border. But yeah, it's look, I think it's going to vary market by market, but kind of excited for what's to come. So, like as a payments company for us, right, we got our bankers on the other side, and we have continuous conversation about these are the use cases we want to have. This is what's in front of us right now, and you've got to bring everyone on the journey. The bankers, the regulators, everyone's got to come along.
Yeah, it's so funny with like this whole, like you mentioned, crypto winter. With NFTs, like non-fungible tokens. They have their place, they have their purpose. A lot of people think they're just fancy art, right? Or digital art in general, but they don't realize the smart contracts and atomic assets that can actually go into NFTs where it can actually do something, right? And I think when people start realizing that technology, what NFTs can truly become, it could be, it could be a contract in insurance, it could be, the deed to your house. It could be, to get into a sporting stadium, right? It's called football in Ireland, right? Not soccer.
We also have Gaelic football. So
what is that?
There's two traditional Irish sports. They're Gaelic football and Gaelic hurling. So Gaelic football is kind of like, it's like a soccer ball, slightly smaller, but think also like Australian rules. You can bounce it, you can carry it, you can kick it over the bar. And hurling then, if you've never seen hurling, you need to YouTube it and look it up. It's the fastest field sport in the world. You've basically got a big wooden stick made out of ash. And I mean, in theory, the objective is that you're supposed to hit this ball, small wooden ball, like a baseball. It's kind of made out of pig skin. You hit it over the bar, but in practice, you usually end up hitting each other with the big wooden sticks. Very fast, exceptionally violent and bloody. It's just...
Wait, it's called hurling.
Called hurling, yeah, and in the age of equality, two of my daughters play it as well. So the women's game is exactly the same, but called camogie, and it's amazing to see these field full of 39-year-old girls just beating the hell out of each other with these wooden sticks.
I can just see all of our Metallicus audience right now going to YouTube as you're speaking and looking at these videos.
Well, if anyone who's watching this ever makes a trip to our hometown is Kilkenny in Ireland, and it's basically the hometown for hurling. So if you ever go there, don't be afraid. You're walking around the town centre and you see these school kids wandering around with massive wooden sticks, and you think, I've gotten in the middle of a gang rumble. They're just practicing their hurling. So it's
Cross-border payments, blockchain, and we just brought it back to sports.
Exactly.
I love it.
It all comes to sports. Sports is life, right? So,
Yes, it is.
Yes.
yeah, no, and we had a lot of fun here. So we had Haas. So we got Kevin Magnuson, who was here yesterday. And I'm actually talking later on. I'm on the Impulse stage. I think it's like 3:15. And I'm going to talk about similarities between global payments and Formula One. So, it's, sport is life. It's got to be, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're definitely going to take a look at that for sure. I mean, Paul, are you YouTubing it right now? Hurling.
Am I right? Extremely violent?
So,
Yeah. It's probably blocked on it. It's in the block site. It's like graphic violence.
I have to use a VPN for that one.
Yeah.
well, that's good. We have to take a look at blockchain, right, as it comes to cross-border payments, right? And like you said, the settlement is the most attractive, instant settlement times, and it's just having that, taking a look at it. I love the idea of having the sterling and all these cash accounts, right? And the fiat, and then having them with your digital assets so you can actually see. I think that is kind of probably the next evolution.
And for us, right, it's everyone does what they're best at. So like TransferMate is it's account based in fiat, but we can provide on and off ramps. If you think you're selling your USDC today, all just converting to US dollars. Well, what if I want that in Brazilian real? What if I want it in euro? What if I want it, again, all that goes back to adding value to the end customer journey then, right?
Right.
Can I make it quicker? Can I make it cheaper? Can I add value and make it a more seamless experience, than it is today, in particular through the, usually horrendous correspondent banking, global payment network. So ample opportunity to make this a cleaner, more efficient experience and embed it right in the application. So, you're bringing those payments to where, the users are using. Consumers are used to it. We've been wandering around with phones for, decades at this stage, right? But, where I see the big application now is in the B2B apps that are out there, from the ERPs, accounts payable, payroll, etc. Embedding those global payments, and again, I think there's a huge part for blockchain to play in making that a more efficient process.
So maybe a potential partnership with Proton blockchain, which is our payments blockchain, and TransferMate.
I didn't think you were going to get me live on air, Chris, but now I got to say yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Do we have yes, people? We
There
got to
you
yes,
have it,
yes,
folks.
yes.
Is that, this is only audio, right? You can't see me signing the contract here.
Oh, no, wait.
No,
We're on camera, baby.
We got cameras. We got cameras.
Well, I thought that was just in case I went mad.
I mean, why do you think I'm wearing a velvet jacket? I mean, these people got to...
Because it looks good on you.
You get...
Hey,
what more reason
I
do
knew
you
I
need?
love this guy. I knew
Yeah.
that.
What more reason do you need? I feel sorry for the listeners. They can't see how good you look.
No.
Oh, they can.
They can, actually.
Oh,
They're
definitely
seeing
can.
how good you look, Garrett.
Yeah.
They're seeing it. They're seeing it.
I mean, to be honest, they're kind of half of it's on hurling, but if
Half of it's on her.
they can mute the podcast and just watch us.
And a big wooden stick. And
It's a live stream, so they can always pause.
We've learned about cross-border payments, instant transactions, blockchain, where this is going, and hurling, and I forget the other one. It was hurling and what?
Life and philosophy.
Oh, life and philosophy.
And looking good.
And,
And looking good. And Gaelic football.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
and just one last question I got for you, Gary.
I'm kind of worried whenever
do
you have
they-
one last question.
Because we talked about this prior, but I love Guinness, but I always get it cold in the States. Do they serve it at room temperature warm in Ireland?
Do you know you can actually have different pipes where you can get cold Guinness and room temperature Guinness? So, Guinness, I said sport is life. What I actually meant was Guinness is life, clearly. So yeah, you can get it room temperature, but I would say if you want a real pint of creamy Guinness, you got to go to Dublin or at least Ireland for that, because for some unknown scientific reason doesn't travel that well out of the country. So for any of you guys over there that are listening to this, or next time you're over, Chris, you know, in Ireland, look me up. I'll buy you a pint.
I want some Irish whiskey too. I'm a big whiskey drinker too.
Well, I mean, they go nicely together, right?
Yeah.
And geez, is it noon yet? I'm kind of like, I'm feeling thirsty.
Isn't that
for everyone looking, this is a Fiji,
it's like an
this is
Irish
a
car
Fiji
bomb,
water.
right?
Yes, that exactly.
Oh gosh.
Jesus, you're not allowed to say those terms anymore. It means an entirely different thing for which you get locked up.
Oh yeah.
Oh well, this has been great, Gary. This has been great. I'm really excited to work with you in the partnership, and you know what you guys are doing, and I really like this podcast because it is companies that are having tons of success, but adapting and transforming to the way the world's going. And I think that is just like we are as well. So very excited and want to thank you for your time, for this interview.
It's been a pleasure, and I'll steal some of those TikToks now. So.
We got to slide it over here. Make sure it's on camera. We got that for you. Hey, product placement. All right. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much, Gary. This has been such an awesome conversation, and we basically got a great title for this segment. Everything from hurdle to football to the philosophy of life, and et cetera, et cetera. But once again, we are Metallicus live at Blockchain Beach.